Welcome to the Strength for Life podcast, where smart strength training meets real life. We're Dr. Matt and Nicole Klingberg, founders of Village Fitness and Physical Therapy. Here, you'll learn what really works in the gym, at home, and for life. Today on the Strength for Life podcast, we will be answering your questions.
Yes, so fun. I always love a good Q&A.
I love a good Q&A too. And these are real questions that we got from clients of ours and non-clients on the Instagrams, the Facebooks, and they're really specific. And we're going to dive in and answer them. So the first one is from Karen Peterson, KP, one of the original OG Village clients back in the day. She's a beast. She is a beast. She's an animal. Been a big fan of ours for a long time. We're a big fan of you, KP, if we're being honest. And she said, what is your go-to food/fuel when racing or hiking your speed trails? Thank you, KP, for calling what we do speed trails. Fueling is so important, but it seems like all the goos are full of yuck.
Yeah, I would say anything like highly processed and packaged, they're going to say it has things like, protein and carbs, but a lot of times those things are just, again, highly processed. They have a lot of chemicals and things that keep them stable in a package. And so you're going to be a lot better off eating whole foods that have, carbohydrates and sugar in them. So we do a lot of, like when we're hiking, we do a lot of dried fruit. If we do anything that's like...
Let's zoom out and just like, what do we eat in a day on our backpacking trip?
Yeah. So for breakfast, we eat these in...
Well, first we'd have coffee.
Yeah, first we have coffee, which you found
and then we hike a few miles.
That's true. That is true. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah.
That's great.
Sounds like I want to talk.
I know. I think so.
So first we'd have coffee. I would make the coffee. I'm the coffee making guy.
He is.
Turns out. And then we would hike for an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours before we'd have really anything to eat most days. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because it underscores this general principle that if your exercise intensity is low enough, like hiking, backpacking, you don't necessarily need to be constantly ingesting fuel to do the exercise. And I think this is one of the big misconceptions that people have with exercise, with nutrition in general. It's that they need to have a constant stream of sugar going into their bodies while they are exercising in order to do the exercise. And that's just not the case, as evidenced by the fact that we didn't eat for the first few hours of the day and we felt fine. And then we'd start to get hungry, a few hours into our backpacking, and then we would actually stop, take a break, and have breakfast.
I also think it depends on the timing. Like if you, are hiking later in the day or in the evening, like you want to make sure that you eat really, quality meals beforehand, that you're getting a lot of protein. If you are eating carbohydrates, they should be, well sourced, coming from like sweet potatoes or things like vegetables and fruits. And, you don't need anything extra. So like if I go do one of my favorite hikes around here is Church of the Open Door, and it's basically a mile up and a mile back down. And when I do that, like I don't fuel for the hike. So anything that's like, it's not super high intensity, then I don't fuel extra, if that makes sense. However, if I were to do, say, a longer run, which I have done more recently, I often just like for energy and to make sure that, my glucose doesn't go too low, and just really to try to keep the momentum and the pace that I'm going at, I'll take things like a few dates with me to eat. And so again, I kind of go towards dried fruit during, and I would say that would be like anything above an hour. If it's below an hour, you really should not need to fuel. And then if you're in the morning, if you're doing something that's really intense, like you're going to perform a lot better if you do have some naturally occurring carbohydrates and some protein before. So if you're doing like heavy strength training, but specifically like for this, so this is like hiking or racing, I would definitely eat something for optimal performance before doing that. When we're out backpacking and hiking and we're not going, super fast and it's pretty low intensity, we're probably in like zone 1 or 2, then I would say you don't have to fuel before then.
Yeah. But we would eat when we got hungry. So we'd have breakfast, lunch, dinner. For breakfast and dinner, we were doing this like freeze-dried backpacking meals from a company called Pinnacle. And they make real ingredient food that's actually quite tasty.
And it has high quality ingredients. Like it has like grass-fed beef, well-sourced sausage, and the sausage cheddar, I think it's sausage cheddar biscuits for breakfast that we eat that are delicious. So, and the other thing to note too is like when we're doing these backpacking trips, like most of the days that we started, we were like hiking in between anywhere between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And so you're just like not that hungry at that point too.
That's a good point.
If we had gotten up at, 6 a.m. and we were hiking at 9 a.m., like we would have eaten probably before then. We were just trying to get on the trail and get as many miles in before it was too hot.
Nice. So the ideal when training, specifically aerobic training, is to get your body to the point where you are what's called metabolically flexible, meaning when you're not eating, you can burn body fat for fuel. And the best way to do that is to, number one, not snack in between meals. So you have your breakfast and you don't eat till lunch and then you don't eat till dinner. There's research that shows that Americans today have like 6 to 8 eating occurrences per day on average.
Which is like about every 2 hours, which makes sense because the snack industry is booming.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
you should
working.
see
It's working.
when our kids play sports, the snacks that they get after. I took this picture one time of Cooper's baseball snack after one of his games, and I ran it through ChatGPT. It was literally 800 calories, 90% of it from processed carbohydrates and sugar, and that was his snack. It's like, he hasn't even had dinner yet, and you're making him eat, not making him, but giving him a snack with 800 calories. Like, it's no wonder we have an obesity epidemic today amongst children. Mm-hmm. It's estimated by 2048, 100% of Americans will be overweight or obese.
That's scary.
And I think a big part of this is the snacking issue. Mm-hmm. And so that's step number one, is stop snacking, because then your insulin levels go down because they go up when you eat, and then they have a chance to actually go back down. And your body then has to rely on pulling from stored body fat for energy. And you kind of train yourself to be like, okay, I can do this. Mm-hmm. Now, while you're sitting here listening to this or walking, listening to this or whatever, driving, right now, you have enough energy within your body, even if you're fairly lean in fat, to get from here, Southern California, up to San Francisco, walking wise. Like, you already have that energy. You have thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of calories of fat energy within you. Now, as far as carbohydrates, we have very little. We have a little bit in our blood sugar, like a teaspoon of sugar within our blood. We have a little bit in our muscles, maybe like 400 calories or so. And then we have maybe another 200 to 300 calories in our liver, in liver glycogen. And so once we exhaust those supplies, if that's what we're relying on, that's where people bonk. People bonk because they're doing too high of an intensity of exercise relative to what their bodies are able to tolerate in terms of pulling from fat for fuel. So the better you get at pulling fat and using that for fuel, the longer you can go in your endurance exercise and the faster. So if I were somebody that was training for an endurance-based event, let's say I'm training for a marathon or a half marathon or a long bike race, I would try to do most of, if not all of my training with a mostly fat and protein-based diet around the training. So I would take nuts with me, maybe some dried fruit, like some naturally occurring fruit. I would probably take some really low sugar chocolate. And this is only for super long training workouts. Like anything under 2 hours, I'm not eating during the workout if it's training. And that's to train my body. Hey, you can pull from my fat stores for fuel. So hopefully that all makes sense. And then if I was doing an event, like I was going to go do a race, like a marathon, like Jamila just did this last weekend, and Dr. Justin, super proud of both of them for finishing, I would eat some very quick digesting sugar, like potentially goo. I know it has a bunch of junk in it, but if you're like, I want to perform at a top level, really fast digesting sugar just works. It helps to increase performance. It helps psychologically our bodies to feel like they're getting this hit of sugar. It increases dopamine levels. So if your goal is performance on the day of the race, and you also are able to stomach, fast digesting sugar. Some people just don't stomach quick digesting sugar as well. Mm-hmm. It's a fine race day fuel, and it'll work even better if you haven't been eating a lot of sugar building up to it. Mm-hmm. So then you get kind of this added benefit on race day of, okay, now I can pull from my body fat for fuel, and I can have this like quick sugar hit that'll give me some more energy throughout my race.
Yeah. I would say try it at least a couple of times in a training period, because some people, like you said, they just don't respond well. Like I had tried that when I ran a half marathon, where I like tried to eat things because I had forgotten I was used to eating. Like I think at that point, like I had on a couple of runs, I had tried shot blocks and they were fine. And then I got to the race and I had forgotten them. And so I think I ate whatever was at like, the stations that they give you, like the support stations. And I ended up vomiting because my stomach was not handling it. So I would recommend trialing it at least a couple of times to see how your body handles it when you're really in like a race pace mode.
Yeah.
You want to finish our backpacking day of eating?
I think we did.
No, we didn't.
Oh,
yeah.
all right.
So we just did breakfast. We did coffee and breakfast.
Okay.
We typically don't snack. If we do, sometimes like we'll have some, like I said, maybe dried fruit. It just again depends on the length of time. We took dates
on this last trip. We had 1 date per day.
It was great.
And just like I did when I was a fat kid, I always ate my lunch early.
He did.
Back in school. You don't know that. You weren't there.
Now you do that.
I do not. I eat my lunch at normal times.
Oh my gosh, when we were backpacking.
Oh yeah. Well, no, what? Well, I ate my date early.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to, when I was in like middle school, I would eat my lunch before lunch, and then I would ask other kids for their food during lunch.
Oh my God.
One of my friends, he always said, his name was Ryan. He always said Lunchables, like the ham, the cheese, the crackers. And Ryan would let me have his cheese. It's like this stack of processed cheese.
Wow.
Ryan, he's a good friend. Yep.
So we get to lunch. And lunch, we usually have like beef sticks, bison bars, or some type of epic bar, salami, and then we usually have cheese.
Not Lunchables cheese.
Lunchables cheese.
We do like a hard Parmesan cheese because that'll stay really well inside of the bear can, the backpack.
Yeah, so we do like salami, cheese, nuts, peanut butter we had, and then some dried apples and a date.
Yep.
And then we didn't eat usually until dinner. And then for dinner, we had one of our backpacking pinnacle meals, and they were delicious. There was like a ground beef and veggie bowl. There was I think a Thai like curry one. And then the other one was, I don't remember, Italian sausage and pasta or something. So again, all really quality ingredients, really high in fat, because again, you're out backpacking and you need a lot of energy when you are walking all day.
Yep. But all of our training that we did not eat during training. So like I went for a mountain bike ride this morning. I did not eat during the ride. It was like an hour and a half. We're going to run tonight because we're training for High Rocks. And be like a 40-minute run. Like we will not eat during that. We'll just eat our normal food. I will, because of the volume of our training right now, on a really high training day like today, I'll eat a little bit more carbohydrate, like maybe an extra 30, 40 grams of carbs, just to give my body what it needs to recover and to have like the energy I need just to get through the training day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say with running more and doing more aerobic activity for me recently, I've just like the volume of my food and my meals has increased. I'm not necessarily eating more often. I just am making sure that I get at least 40 grams of protein with every meal. I'm getting some carbohydrates in there that are well sourced, and I'm just probably eating a little bit more because I don't want to lose weight and I don't want to lose my muscle. And so I've increased the amount that I'm eating at the 3 meals that I eat.
Nice.
During the day.
Nice. All right, let's move on.
Yeah. So talking about protein, the next question is from Miss Lenore, and she asks, is it okay to substitute protein powder for eating meat and other natural protein from food? I would say any type of supplement should be layered in with what you already eat, and that should be a well-sourced diet that is high in hopefully, animal products and well-sourced vegetables and high quality fats. And if that's not there, no amount of supplements can make up for a crappy diet. So like if you're eating cereal for breakfast, you have, a sandwich for lunch with crappy bread and, crappy meat, or Lunchables if you're a kid. then you have a big bowl of pasta for dinner. Like you having protein powder, like it's not going to, it's going to help you to get a little bit more protein, but you're just not getting enough dietary protein. And at the end of the day too, your body, there's a lot of other things like vitamins and minerals and nutrients that are in well-sourced food. And you don't get that when you have a supplement like protein powder. That being said, I think a lot of people have a hard time getting enough dietary protein. And so adding in protein powder is an easy way to make sure that you're getting enough. Or like if you're on the go for a workout, say, like especially our early morning people that work out between like 5 and 8 a.m., I tell all of them, I'm like, you should have, I know it's hard to eat before you work out, but you should have protein powder, whether with water or milk before you work out. And that just ensures that you're getting some protein in early in the morning because you're going to be up for a while and working out pretty hard. However, I would say don't just have protein powder and a crappy diet.
Yeah. I think the where this question may be coming from, it could be somebody that's like, hey, I don't normally eat breakfast because I just don't like it, or I wake up too late. Protein smoothie or, milk and protein powder and creatine, it's really fast. Can I just make that the night before, drink that while I'm on my way to the gym or on my way to work? Is that better than nothing? Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's an easy yes. I think this could also apply to the person who's like, hey, I don't eat lunch, or I always eat crappy for lunch. I go out to eat. I eat at the office, cafeteria or whatever, and I make bad choices, and then I feel sluggish the rest of the day. Can I just do a protein shake for lunch as long as I'm getting a real meal at breakfast and dinner? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's totally fine. And then this question could also be coming from somebody who's like, am I going to get the same muscle building benefits from 30 grams of protein in a protein shake as I would from 30 grams of protein in chicken? And the answer is yes, you are. Protein is protein. Higher quality proteins with more branched chain amino acids like leucine, which is really important for building muscle, are going to work better than others. Whey protein happens to be one of the highest sources of leucine that there is, and it's fantastic for building muscle. That's why it's used in research studies again and again when it comes to muscle building. So yeah, it's fine. Now, what you don't get, which Nicole alluded to with protein powder, is all of the other nutrients that come along with real food. I also think that our bodies are really meant to receive nutritional communication in the form of real food, and they probably process things better in ways that we don't even understand yet in the scientific community when it comes from real food. So I would recommend biasing your diet mostly around real food, and then supplementing, hence the name, with protein to add on top of it, or to hit your protein goals for the day of like 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight.
Another really important component about just digestion and actually like your jaw health and the muscles is that chewing things that are challenging to chew, like steak, or things that are really tough, like vegetables that are raw that you have to like really chew, is that it slows digestion. It slows the increase or the spike in blood sugar because your body really has to break it down. Whereas something that's very highly processed, it gets absorbed really quickly, which, for protein, like you want to absorb the protein, you want your body to use it. However, with food in general, like the softer it is, the worse it is for your body, because often it spikes your blood sugar, and also you're just not using the muscles that you were intended to use with eating. And so it's kind of like some of the digestion has been done for you, and so your body just doesn't absorb as many nutrients from the food that's already been, like, say, for an example, applesauce. Mm-hmm. Like if you just have a packet of applesauce, like you don't even have to chew that, you just swallow it. Versus eating an apple, you actually have to like bite into it, you have to chew it, and it has a lot more nutrients for your body. And then it's also much better for your jaw and just your development in general of, all the muscles in your face.
I like it. I agree. Okay, next question is from Ginny Sharippa. Again, an OG client, one of the first.
Funny story, Ginny and Jennifer, her daughter, and her husband Bob, all trained with me at the last gym that I worked at, even before we started Village. And then they started...
The gym that shall not be named.
We started I did in-home training with them for a long time, and then they came to Village, and they've been at Village since we've opened, and they're just like the sweetest family. And Ginny is one of the strongest women that I think I've ever met. It's impressive.
So her question was, how do you restart workouts with one hand much weaker than the other? Most workouts use 2 hands. You are right. Most workouts do indeed use 2 hands. There's an interesting research study that Nicole reminded me of that we learned about in undergrad that was done in 2008. And what they had people do was bicep curls with one arm for 8 weeks. And they left the other arm alone. So let's say they did it with the right arm, they left the left arm alone, or vice versa. What they found was, no surprise, the arm that they trained, let's say it was the right arm, improved by 79% in terms of 1 rep max. So the most weight they could do. What surprised them was that the untrained arm also improved. That's the arm that they did 0 bicep curls on, improved in 1 rep max by like 9%. Also improvements in rate of force development and isometric contraction capability, all this interesting stuff. And there was no training in that arm. And what the researchers said that this likely came from was neurological strength gains, meaning the brain has a big component in forming more efficient neural connections with our muscles as we strength train. And that can happen regardless of which side you're doing the strength training on. So for you, Ginny, I think even just starting with one arm may be, okay, because you're going to get some strength gains in the other arm. And I think an even better plan would probably be to just start a little bit lighter on both arms.
Mm-hmm. And then I would even do extra reps. So say, for example, you were doing, overhead press. I would lean towards doing more single arm movements for the first few weeks that you start back with strength training. And then as you do, say, single arm shoulder press, like instead of doing, 5 reps on the weaker side, do 10 and then just do 5 on the stronger side. And then that way it's just like getting higher volume, more stimulus to just basically tell the body to send more strength to that side. And I think you'll start to notice, especially if the strength has been there before, like I think it'll catch up pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And it's always better to do some strength training, even modified, than nothing at all.
Yeah, and I would not recommend doing what they did in that study where you're just lifting with your good arm. I don't think that's a great idea. I just thought it was interesting.
And it was interesting because muscle hypertrophy didn't actually change in either arm, which again was linked to the neural connection. And that's a lot of times what happens when you start strength training in general. Mm-hmm. Is
for 6 weeks.
A lot of your strength gains initially come from just the neural adaptations and your body being able to essentially fire those muscles more quickly. And so that strength probably in the study came from purely that, because there was no change in muscle size.
Love it. All right, keep at it, Ginny. Kathy Kneep said, "Why would someone wear a weighted vest?" Kathy, that's a great question. It's really
all the rage these days.
It's all the rage.
All the rage.
Yeah, all the rage. So one of the big reasons why people would wear a weighted vest is because they're looking to increase the amount of calories that they're burning with their walking based exercise, making it more of a cardiovascular challenge, making it tougher, while not quite getting into the realm of jogging. And jogging, every step you take puts 8 times the amount of your body weight in force through your joints. Walking is more like 3x. Even if you add 10-20% of your body weight in additional load on your back or in a vest, it still is going to pale in comparison to the amount of force from jogging. So it's a much lower impact form of cardiovascular exercise than jogging, with many of the same benefits.
Yeah. And then I would say it also just is going to get your heart rate up a little bit higher than if you were just to go out for a normal walk. So it's a good thing to do for zone 2 cardio, because it just gives you a little bit of, like Matt said, you get a little bit more stress on your body. But it's also, I would say, to dose it in a way that is not going to make you, get injured. So if you haven't been doing weighted walking or with a vest or a backpack, then I would not just jump into using 20 pounds. I would start with 5 to 6 pounds, allow your body to adapt to it, and then slowly increase the load, just like we do in strength training in the gym.
Another reason would be to lose weight. So this is a really interesting study that was done on people in a caloric restriction diet. Mm-hmm. And they had one group of people that were restricting their calories, wear a weighted vest for a few hours a day, another group that did not. Now, both groups lost actually about the same amount of weight during the study duration, which I think was like 8 weeks. And then at the end of the study, they said, okay, you're free to go, do whatever you want to do. So both groups gained some of the weight back over the next 6 months. Now, what was really interesting was that the group that had worn the weighted vest during the study did not gain back as much weight. In fact, they were like 9 pounds lighter than the non-weighted vest group. And what they were hypothesizing was going on was that the extra weight was signaling to the body that they had not lost weight. And when you do lose weight, your body goes, hey, there's something going on. There's less weight. Something must be wrong. Decrease the metabolism, increase the desire for food, etc. But if you wear a weighted vest, it seems to blunt this response. So the body's like, okay, I guess we're fine. There's still this weight at some point during the day. And I think you could even take this further to say, hey, what if we just did this after the weight loss has happened? Will that help to prevent the rebound metabolic slowdown that we see so often in people that go on a diet?
Yeah. And then there's not a ton of research on like bone density yet. I think that's coming though in the next few years where they'll see, because, I think that it's like, just like lifting weights. It's definitely not in place of lifting weights. I think it's a really good addition and supplement to heavy progressive strength training. So.
Which kind of dovetails into another question that somebody asked, which was, what do I do on the days that I'm not working out at Village? Or the days I'm not strength training in general? What should I be doing for my workouts?
I would definitely recommend weighted walking or rucking.
Or just walking. So let's say somebody's a total beginner. They have multiple health conditions. They're in their early 70s. They've got some injuries. Maybe they had a total knee replacement recently. They've got back pain. And they're like, hey, I'm starting out strength training 2 days a week, 3 days a week. What do I do on the days in between? First off, I'd say, hey, just get started with the strength training. Like, don't feel the need to do everything all at once. Even if your first, 3 months, you just strength train 2 to 3 days a week, that would be a huge net win. So just be successful with that. And then add in some walking. So low level daily movement on the days you're not training, especially minimum 30 minutes. You could do swimming, cycling, something you enjoy.
And even better if it's outside, because then you get the sunlight, you get vitamin D, and there's a lot of benefits to being outside. And so going for a walk is a great way to spend time out in nature. And there's a whole host of benefits to walking outside and being in nature. So I would say walking. And then if you can't get 30 minutes or an hour in at one point in the day, then spread it out. And there's actually, research that shows that if you spread out your walking throughout the day, you actually have a better blood sugar response, which can help with preventing chronic diseases and losing weight. If you say, for example, go for 3 10-minute walks versus 1 30-minute walk every day. So spread it out. I always tell people, like, if you can somehow habit stack and add, walking into different things that you're already doing, often we have pockets of time we can do things that we choose, to spend sitting, and we actually don't have to. And so there's things you can do, like walking around a waiting room if you're, waiting at a doctor's office or for something, and you can walk further into the grocery store. So there's things that you can do to, have just more low level activity throughout your day. And I would recommend doing that, being more aware of that. And the best way to do that is to have some type of wearable device that tells you how many steps you have. If you don't know how many steps you get in a day, you should figure that out, because a lot of people are like, sometimes I'm just like blown away. It's like 1,000 steps on average a day. I'm like, you really sit all day long. Even clients that work out at Village, like they've come in and they were like, yeah, it's good if I get 3,000 steps. I'm like, wow, that's a problem. You must just this is the only time you're moving through the day and you're sitting the rest of the day. So that's just going to mean you're more likely to have injuries. You're more likely to have chronic, diseases if you're just sitting all day. Even if you add in the strength training, obviously that helps. Yep. But you just need a lot of low level movement for just your body health. It also helps your joints so that they're not as stiff. You're going to be less likely to get injured, all sorts of things.
Nice. Let's talk about the soreness question. So, what do I do about muscle soreness?
Move. Move and don't sit.
Well, I think first we talk, why does muscle soreness happen in the first place? And there's a misconception that muscle soreness comes from lactic acid buildup, and that's simply not the case. There's another misconception that muscle soreness, and I think I've said this before, actually comes from breakdown of muscle tissue. And research has shown that there's not always breakdown of muscle tissue from strength training in people that have pain. And so what really is going on is that the strength training that you've done, if it is sufficiently stressful on your body, the body will perceive it as a potentially dangerous stimuli and it will set off the pain response within you. And maybe there's some inflammation going on, increasing the pressure in the muscles, stimulation of different mechanoreceptors, chemical receptors, temperature receptors that cue and create this experience of pain within your body. It's a very complex process. Now, to avoid getting sore from your workouts, you just need to start very slowly. Like your first workout back after a long hiatus or your first workout period should be way easier than you think it needs to be. And I think this rule becomes more and more important the older that you get. You know, I'm 36 now. When I was 26, or gosh, when I was 16, I could just go and do whatever I wanted, even after having not trained for a long time. And I didn't really get sore at all. And now it's like, man, if I do squats, even if I use quite a bit less weight than I left off on, if I haven't been doing them consistently, I'm really sore. Contrast that with about a year ago, I went through a 12-week squat program where I was squatting 3 days a week. And I was going up by 5 pounds every single workout. And I wasn't sore at all. Even though I was squatting 3 days a week, my body was so used to the stimulus of squats that it was just like, hey, I guess this is just what Matt does. This is my body talking. Hey, this is just what we do. We squat 3 days a week and we do it heavy. Whereas, you know, I worked up to 315 pounds and I did a set of 5 with 315 at the end of it. Wasn't sore the next day. Contrast that with I came back and squatted after taking a month off from squats recently, and I did 185 pounds, so like half. And I was so sore for like 4 days after. I could barely move my legs. It's like, man, how does that happen? And it happens because it was a new or novel stimulus, and that's the key, is new. So you can avoid most of the muscle soreness by starting really slow and kind of easing your way in. If you wanted to not get sore at all, you start with bodyweight squats, then you do the bar, then you do lightweight, and you slowly bump up. By about 4 weeks, you can be back at your like intensity weight and probably not be all that sore.
Yeah. So the soreness that most people are talking about, like you said, the definition for it is delayed onset muscle soreness. So DOMS for short. And like he said, that really happens in the like 24 to 48 hours after people work out. And so that's how we know it's not necessarily like the breakdown of muscle, and how, like he said, you could, you know, not be sore even after really strenuous workout if your body is trained. So it comes from the novelty and probably from just some general inflammation in that area, because the body's like, what is going on? Yeah. We are not used to this. And so, you know, people, even bodyweight squats, like people, I've had people that have come in that are brand new that haven't, you know, squatted, and they get really, really sore from bodyweight squats. You fast forward to 6 weeks from then, you know, and they're squatting with 25 pounds on their back and they're fine the next day. And so one of the things that's most frustrating, and I think it's getting better, it's like one of those like fitness trends, is that muscle soreness equals effectiveness in a workout. And it's just not true at all. And in fact, I think it's often prevents you from being able to do some of the other things in your life that you really need to do. And it's not always bad. It just, sometimes it's kind of par for the course. Like you started back strength training and you took a month off, and you're just going to be a little bit more sore because, you know, you're not going to go all the way back to body weight squats. You know, you're going to start at maybe half the weight. And so you are going to be a little more sore, but soreness does not mean that it was a good workout. And I think a lot of people started to think that soreness equaled a good workout because they were so used to going to like boot camp style classes or things that changed the stimulus every time. And so they just were like, well, if I'm sore, that means I got a good workout. And that's not the case, and not true at all. Not backed by science.
Nope. All right. Last question. Why don't you intro this one? This is a you question more than me.
Yeah. So I was asked by Sandy, who her kids go to school with my kids, what is the best workout to start with after giving birth? If I've never really worked out or lifted weights during years of motherhood, what do I do? And so I love this question, and specifically because, you know, I think there's a lot of moms who just it's like the idea of lifting weights and strength training just feels like, oh, that's not either something I need to do, or it's like not something that I even have time to do. And so what do I do? And so I would say even more so than someone who hasn't, done any strength training in the past, like if you've recently given birth, like start really slow. And I would say every woman after giving birth should go see a pelvic floor physical therapist. So we have one on staff, Dr. Erica, and she's incredible. And she really helped me after I had my third baby. And it was frustrating because, I had been strength training for a very, very long time and during pregnancy. But after having my third, it was like, I just don't feel good. My pelvic floor feels really weak. And so I had to like really regress with like starting with some body weight glute bridges and focusing on my core and how to control my pelvic floor and strengthen it before even getting back into like body weight squats and, any strength training. And so it probably took about a full year before I was even back to like, okay, I can even go to a small group training session. Like I just had to do a lot of body weight things at home and then slowly increase the weight. And I had to make sure that I was really conscious of my pelvic floor. So all that to say, I would say see a pelvic floor therapist. And then if you can't do that, there's a lot of great resources online for things that you can do. But I would say that then that's where a lot of women also fall short, is that they kind of just say like, I'm only going to work on strengthening my core. And that's important. And you want to retrain your core because obviously it was stretched out and all those muscles are now kind of shrinking back. But you don't want to just stop there. You're not going to be strong enough to keep up with toddlers and running around with kids and lifting them in and out of car seats. And I can't tell you how many women with young kids end up like hurting their shoulders or their backs because I think they're just like weak all over and they haven't prioritized strength training quickly enough. And the reality is that motherhood is so demanding. You have to lift a lot of weight very often and usually in very awkward positions. Like if anyone's ever tried to like help a child in the backseat of a car, it's like one of the most ridiculous things. However, that being said, like you do need to prioritize strength training. So it can start off slow with just body weight things and then adding weight. But then I would say like once your pelvic floor and, everything feels good enough, then I would say start to add weight and do progressive overload strength training, just like we'd recommend any client who comes in. There's just a couple of things that I would do leading up to that before just jumping into it. And if you're like, oh, my pelvic floor feels good, then start with some body weight squats, but don't just stop there. And Pilates can be helpful, but it's not going to give you enough stimulus to actually strengthen your whole body.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I would say last thing to that, women, we get a lot of women who come to us, in menopause or post-menopause. And one of the resounding things I hear is like, I wish someone would have told me to do this sooner. Like I wish I would have been strength training because, a lot of motherhood and younger women in their like 30s and 40s are really just focused on taking care of other people and they don't prioritize taking care of themselves. And it can feel like I don't have time for this. Yeah. However, there are often, creative ways that you can do this. Like one thing that you could do if you don't have access to a gym is like get adjustable dumbbells, like get one set of adjustable dumbbells that go up to 50 pounds. And like you can do a lot with just that set of dumbbells if you don't have access to a gym. And then just try to, as much as you can, hopefully with the support of a spouse or significant other who's gonna, wants the best for you and wants you to be strong and thriving as a mom, asking for time for that. Even if it's just 30 minutes, you can get a lot done in that time. And it's really, really important. And if you don't have that ability, then do it at home and, make it a priority. I find that if I try to do it during the day, it doesn't happen with kids. There's just too many things that are happening. And so getting up early and, strength training first thing in the morning, like ensures that it's going to happen.
Nice.
And it's pretty fun too, because our kids, as they've gotten older, they strength train with us now, which is great. So it's also, I think, a great example for kids to see their moms prioritizing that, and you can actually include them in it, which is really fun.
Fun. Interesting.
Yeah, it is. I enjoy it.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes. All right. Well, thank you all for listening to our Q&A. If you have other questions, drop them as a comment or email us at podcast@villagefpt.com. And we would love to cover them in a future Q&A episode. Like, subscribe, leave us a review if you like the pod. Let us know what you think. Until next time, I'm Dr. Matt.
And I'm Nicole Klingler.
Stay strong.